listening to A Balanced Juggle, helping women find balance in managing it all while achieving their own personal goals. Hey, welcome back. Episode 7. Here we are. Two things I want to update you guys with before we actually get into what I want to discuss today. Number one, we did some testing earlier in the week where I uploaded a test episode. Well, 2 test episodes, really, 7 and 8. And if you did happen to download it, again, it was just tests. I apologize for any inconvenience. The folks that actually handle this thing from a technical standpoint needed to test something. So if you did happen to download those test episodes, they were only about maybe 10 to 20 seconds each, and both of which did say test. So if you did and there was any inconvenience, my apologies for that. All right, the second part of this is, guys, I'm actually sitting in my bedroom on the ground surrounded by just heaps of clothes, and I'm actually supposed to be packing because we're traveling in a couple of days, and I can't decide what the hell to bring, what to pack, what actually looks good. I did lose some weight, so I'm kind of going through clothes that didn't previously fit me, that may fit me now, and I feel totally and utterly overwhelmed. So instead of hunkering down and accomplishing the task, I decided to start podcasting because, that's what I'm doing. You know, it could be, you could say I'm just procrastinating, but I choose to think of it as strategic procrastination. I am going to deal with packing when I am more focused and able to deal with it in an effective and efficient manner. Yeah, that's what I'm telling myself. So now that those updates are done, and you know I'm on the floor podcasting right now in my bedroom surrounded by clothes, why don't we get started? Let's change the topic. Yeah. So I want to touch on a subject that each one of us is affected by in some way or another. Every single one of us listening to this podcast is affected by our emotions in some way or another. There's not one person on this planet can say that they are never affected by emotions. And more so than just emotions, I want to talk about emotional eating, which is something that I know affects me quite a bit. And it's only recently, since I started this journey, did I realize how much it had an impact on me. How many times I misunderstood what cravings or lack of willpower is or was versus it just being emotional eating. And this is important because I feel as though if we create an awareness and an understanding of what emotional eating is, we would be able to catch it and refocus that energy versus subconsciously going for it and eating it and then feeling bad afterwards, or limiting ourselves and just feeling bad about that limitation. One of the first things I think is necessary is for us to define what an emotion is. And according to Discovering Psychology, edition 6 by Don and Sandra Hockenberry, an emotion is a complex psychological state that involves 3 distinct components: a subjective experience, a psychological response, and a behavioral or expressive response. Just on hearing that definition, if we were to think about emotional eating, we could already start to see how that correlates or how emotions can play a factor on us just responding with food. In this episode, I plan to cover understanding and building an awareness of emotional eating, especially as it pertains to any triggers that we may experience, and then also using or developing distractions. So when we do acknowledge the fact that we are there, we are experiencing an emotion that may drive us towards food, we can then implement strategies to kind of refocus that energy elsewhere, or really and truly discover whether or not are we hungry or are we something else, another emotion that we may be misinterpreting as hunger. Okay, y'all, so real talk. What causes emotional eating? Duh, our emotions, right? But what are those emotions? How many times do you catch yourself feeling stressed or feeling anxious or feeling like everything is so out of control? You just find yourself subconsciously subconsciously, maybe not even knowing it, migrating towards food. And then you associate that or you attribute that as, oh, it's a craving or lack of willpower. The key is to find out what you're feeling when you're migrating towards food and to become aware of when that happens so you know what your triggers are to then move in a different direction. According to the Mayo Clinic, there is a connection between mood and food and, believe it or not, weight loss. I know, right? Who knew? So emotional eating is eating as a way to suppress or soothe negative emotions such as stress, anger, fear, boredom, sadness, and loneliness. Some of those triggers are relationship conflicts, work stress, fatigue, financial problems or pressures, or health problem. Well, I for one can say I definitely have noticed after becoming more aware how much more of an emotional eater I am than I previously thought I was. I just thought I lacked willpower. I just thought I couldn't control my cravings when it was something much bigger than that. It was eating due to my emotions. I feel like sometimes I'm just up against the wall or I'm so stressed I need something to relieve that. So what do? I do what anyone else do. I grab the friggin' Nutella. I'm just kidding. No, I'm not. The key in all of this is identifying how I can stop my emotional eating from sabotaging my weight loss. And the good news is there are ways, there are strategies we can put into play that can help us regain control of our eating habits. And again, it all starts by or with awareness. Like everyone else, most people blame the lack of willpower for the fact that 95% of all diets fail. Whether the diet fails from the get-go or when the dieter regains all the weight after going off their diet, lack of willpower gets the blame. I know in my own personal experience, I've always thought it was lack of willpower. I just don't have the willpower to be in control of my wants. And I'm not the only one. So what I feel many people don't realize is that emotional eating is often the real culprit. There's always an underlying emotional factor that may be consciously or subconsciously pushing us towards food. Not only does emotional eating play a pivotal role in obesity, it also plays an important role in disorders such as anorexia, bulimia, and depression. In response to emotional stress, people may overeat, binge on sugary, high-fat snacks, reach for comfort foods, or lose their appetite altogether. I'll tell you what, quite frankly, when I'm stressed or anxious, sad, fatigued, back against the wall, listen, I wish I would lose my appetite. The exact opposite happens. I am a mess. I can eat anything and everything in front of me. And, like I said, I thought previously it was due to lack of willpower. I just thought that was me, right? I never stopped to think, how am I feeling? What am I feeling? What is triggering this? I never stopped. So we all can recognize, we all can build that awareness, but why is it so hard? Why is it so hard to differentiate our wants from our physical or psychological needs? And can we? I really do think we can. I have a couple of points here as to why we tend to emotionally eat. The number one reason for emotional eating is boredom. Boredom is an emotion that is not signal from your body that you need nutrients and energy. When you're inactive, you have nothing going on. Have you ever just felt like you're at a standstill? What do? One of the first things most people do is say, oh, well, let me go get something to eat. I don't have anything really going on right now. Let me grab a snack, or let me go out and get a cup of coffee. That turns into a frappuccino with whipped cream. The next time you're bored and it's not exactly that time and you've identified that you're not really hungry, ask yourself if you're just eating because you're bored. It's possible. I know I've done it. The second part of this is social eating. Going out, meeting your buddies, out of obligation, going to lunch with your coworkers and colleagues and being obligated to eat something when you're really and truly not either hungry or not really wanting to make that your meal, or it's just not time to eat. Most of our social gatherings are around food. I mean, let's be honest. No matter what your background is or where on this planet you're from, the two things that can bring humans together is food and music. Those are the two greatest things. And most times when you're meeting up with people, you're doing something on the social end of things, it always, most likely, more times than often, involves some type of food. At least it does with me. Third is comfort foods. Well, many of us develop a relationship with comfort foods, and I will tell you, I know I have. Comfort foods tend to be high-fat, high-carb, calorie-laden dishes. I mean, let's be honest, no one's considering that Mama's famous salad as a comfort food, right? So we've really got to pull back on that and and consider not having it, but how often we're having it and when we're going after it. Fourth is eating to alleviate stress. Yeah, I need to raise my hand with this one because I do that all the time. When it's hitting the fan, historically, I have been known to need something at my desk to munch on as I'm putting out fires and handling the world. Whether it's sunflower seeds, whether it's dark chocolate covered almonds or cashews or what have you, I need to have something at my desk. I always feel like I can't even explain it. I feel like I have to have something to relieve that anxiety that I have as I'm in a critical event. It's only recently I really and truly became aware of that behavior in myself, where now I try to implement when I'm there and I'm getting to that point, I stop and I get up and I move around. I try to get in that inadvertent movement that we talked about in episode 6. I try to go for a walk. I try to do other things that removes the fact that I feel I need to eat something at the point where I'm at that level of stress. And again, it's all practice. I'm not perfect at it, but I am certainly trying to build that level of awareness. Eating to feel loved is number 5. You ever had a bad day or someone or something disappoints you to the effect where you feel lonely or less of what you know you should feel? You tend to say, screw it, get to the freezer and get out the chocolate ice cream. I know in some ways I do that. It's not ice cream. I don't eat the tub of ice cream, but boy, do I love cookies or cake or just eat something that I really and truly shouldn't, not even be cautious about my size proportion. I mean, when I'm not feeling good or when there's something wrong in my relationship or something that I know has disappointed me, yeah, that's one of the first things I tend to look at is, going after something to eat. Number 6 is overeating when depressed. I think most people do that when they are down and out on something. I don't know. I'm a big thing about pasta. Motivation and self-esteem sometimes is low, and it increases the risk to turn high-calorie food into comfort foods in the attempt to lift your mood. A nice bowl of pasta, with pomodoro sauce. Oy, how blissful is that? Especially when you're not feeling well or motivated. Number 7 is undereating when depressed. I can tell you, I do not have that problem. When I'm depressed, I overload. Depression and appetite change are intertwined due to the fact that they both originate in the part of the brain called the limbic system. The limbic system not only controls appetite, but is also responsible for regulating emotions. So there's sort of kind of like a science behind this, where depression and appetite are controlled by the same part of the brain. Obviously, mine kicks it up a notch where my appetite increases with depression. And binge eating. Boy, I could win an award on this one, boy. I'll tell you what, especially when it's a good pack of chips. Binge eating is just, eating an excessive amount of food in a short period of time. I mean, what if you open the bag of Oreos or you open the bag of potato chips and 5 seconds later you realize it's done? You're like, holy crap. Yeah, that's pretty much binge eating. It's, it's doing that, stuffing it all in your face. Research studies have found that 98% of women and 70% of men have experienced food cravings at one time or another. Yeah, okay. These cravings most occur when a person is feeling stressed or anxious. See, this is where I find that this applies to me the most, because when I'm stressed, I start craving all sorts of stuff. That's where I know I blame willpower, because I always give into it. I always give into my cravings because I never looked further than the cravings and the willpower. I never associated it with emotions, an underlying emotion. I acknowledge I'm stressed or I'm anxious about something, and then answering the question as to why am I stressed? Why am I anxious? Why am I angry? And I think answering those questions after acknowledging it may lessen the craving to avoid acting on that craving. The next time we feel that we're in a situation where we may be experiencing some level of emotion, or we find ourselves drawing towards food, we should stop and assess what we're feeling, how we're feeling, and really and truly whether or not, one, it's time to eat, or whether or not we're hungry. And I know most of the topics we covered were rather negative, stress, anxiety, yada, yada, yada. What about when we're happy? That's an emotion too. I mean, what about you guys? When you're elated, you're happy, you're celebrating a milestone, you're celebrating something fabulous in your life, what is the first thing you do? I don't know about y'all, but we don't necessarily go for hikes when we're celebrating. I mean, we go to eat. Coming up next, we're going to talk about strategies we can use in place of when we are headed towards an emotional eating binge, or when we know that we're about to eat something based on our emotions. All All right, so before we move on, I wanted to share with you guys that our hashtag ABJ shop is officially open for business. So head on over to our website, abalancedjuggle.com, visit our shop page, and check out all of the great designs we currently have available. I partnered with Customized Girl, who offers high quality, great prints for reasonable prices. Everything you see on our page are originals made by us here at A Balanced Juggle. So get over there, get your hashtag ABJ swag, and even customize it to your liking. Spread positivity, good vibes, and let your spirit fly high in that high quality, swagalicious gear. Live, laugh,